isn't it, if yours is ignoring the opportunity cost, even though you acknowledge that the opportunity cost is present, and the USDA statistics are apparently overestimating the opportunity cost, then wouldn't it be fair to say that's the high value and yours is the low, and that somewhere in between those two numbers is the actual cost, including opportunity cost and monetary cost?
Yes. Yes. That is your judgment as to what to do. That is your judgment what to do. And I'm going to tell you why we don't know how to measure opportunity costs. I'm going to tell you that. Laura?
I guess I didn't understand the 1,014 versus the 3,696. So you said, I mean, the slide says estimated incremental costs.
Okay.
And so what is that based on?
What that means is that my hypothetical says there's zero incremental costs.
Okay.
But in reality, that's incorrect. In reality, it's 1,000 approximately for this particular classification of people, of households. Laura?
Lisa, that's okay. What is the 1,000 again?
It's the, and I'll get to that in a moment. It is the incremental costs of having the first child for a household with a married household with low income.
just for housing, correct?
Just for housing.
Okay.
And that's only meant to say, look at the difference. It's 3.5 times. If it was small, then I would say, yeah, it's probably right. But it's tough to get your head around the idea that the opportunity cost of the den is worth more than the total rental charges of the housing unit. It's tough to get your head around that.
But it's not the total rental charges of the whole
Right.
unit, right?
It's not the whole rental. It's the incremental. That's your right.
Okay,
You're
I
right.
just was...
Yeah, your point's well
okay.
taken. Absolutely right.
The-
Go on, Kathy.
This is Kathleen. Okay, so if it was for the whole house, do we know what that value is for the whole house? So that we can put it into,
We could get that. I haven't done that. That's a really good point. We could get that.
well, it was Lisa's, it's her.
Well,
I'm really
whichever, you
trying
guys
to
are partners.
make sure.
That's a really good point. We could get that number. I don't have it here with me today, but I could get that number. And that would be something for you to think about. Fair enough.
And just another question.
Sure.
The income here is held
Constant. This is all for the same income. This is only for married households. Okay, now, probably the most important issue here is that second paragraph. This is the third point, where the USDA report says that one could measure housing costs the way I suggested we should do it, by looking at the housing expenses for the same family as children are added to the household. Right? That is what I proposed. And he says that these could be calculated by utilizing these additional costs. But then he rejects it because he says that you can't possibly determine comparable households with and without children. And I think that is just wrong. Because statistically, I have a large sample of thousands of households with and without children of the same income and in the same part of the country and the same urban-rural divide. And I can compare averages. I don't need to deal with precise households with and without children if I deal with averages for the same income in the same section of the country. Now, I wish I had better data, but that's the data I have, and I have to use it. All right, let's go on to food costs. What the USDA does with food costs is striking. It deals with the cost of a nutritious diet, if you look at there. And it's, you know, it's the U.S. Department of Agriculture, so they have to deal with a nutritious diet, right? Whether or not parents actually do nutritious diets, right? And so then they take as a percentage, and then once they get a nutritious diet and they relate it to income, then they divide it equally, right? If they get that, look at the difference in our numbers. My incremental numbers are $471. His incremental numbers, his numbers based on this average value is over $2,000. Enormous differences. The USDA is correct hypothetically to use a nutritious diet. I've no doubt about that. But it is incorrect to look at the expenditures that are actually made by households as reflected in the census data. In some ideal sense, we wish everybody would follow a nutritious diet. You know, I don't dispute that. But that's not what happens. And he's adding his notion about what should be done, not what is done. And that's the difference. In the food area, it's not so much opportunity cost, although it is a little bit in terms of what you said. It is the difference between a nutritious diet and what is done.
And this probably goes to policy more.
Yes.
Because wouldn't we want for all of our children to have the nutritious diet? However, although I have to question how is it defined, because as we once know, ketchup was a vegetable. So, you know, how is a nutritious diet defined?
I agree, but we're not. But if we give the custodial parent the money, that doesn't mean they're going to use the nutritional diet anyway. That doesn't mean that. We're just going to give them the money, and then they'll spend it however they see fit. So, if you were controlling them, then you're right, but you're not. Isn't that true?
But these statistics are still based, and the numbers that you've used are based on the intact family, correct?
Yeah, oh, this is still intact. This is just intact family because I'll get to the other later.
Okay.
I only want to deal with one thing at a time. And so do you see what I mean? You know,
Right.
of course we'd all like that. And, you know, we all like to have a nutritious diet at home. But we don't always succeed, right? We all buy too many chips and things like that.
I just have a question about
Sure.
the data from the Census Bureau.
Sure.
Were they asking how much people spent, whether that was maybe through government benefits or not, or is it what they would spend in excess of government benefits if they received food benefits?
The benefits are included as income.
Okay, but
And if
when
they're
they look
included
at,
income, that how much do you spend?
but when they ask, and maybe it's not, maybe it would be very depending on who's answering the question, but someone may say, well, out of my own pocket, I spend this much, but I actually spend more because I have benefits that allow me to spend that money on food. I don't know if that's
I would
included.
need to go back to the Census Bureau,
Okay,
and you could find that out.
okay.
I believe it's benefits are included as income, and then whatever the expenditures are. I think it's total expenditures, but I could be wrong. You know, you'd have to go check it again with the Census Bureau.
We've got
Sure.
a comment question from the audience as far as cost in food based on location. Does
Sure.
location and potentially also season, is that taken into account?
Yes and no. Location is, because the Census Bureau divides the country into regions, and we take that into account. And we also take into account the difference between urban and rural families, which are different, but not season. We deal with these are annual data. let's go on to transportation. Transportation is the most interesting result between what the USDA funds and what we fund. First of all, they do a survey to determine how much transportation is family related. And then they say, then they just divide family related transportation by the number of people. So if there's 2 kids in the family and 2 adults, the kids get 25% each. They just do it on a per capita basis. That's really, and look at the differences. At the last, this is again for low-income married households. Their number is $1,400 and mine is $300. It's not the way people behave. The assumptions that are made do not reflect actual expenditures. Now, what's the opportunity cost here? It's probably true, as the USDA says, that many of these trips are to take the kids to this place and that place and the other place, to school or wherever. Fine. And if they didn't do that, they would go to the parents without children might go to the museum or someplace else. Who knows? Right? But they spend the same amount of money on gasoline and cars and so forth. So what's the opportunity cost? It's the cost of not going to the museum because you have to take your kid to school. Does that make sense?
It does, but wouldn't there be an opportunity cost, or not an opportunity cost, but the wear and tear on the vehicle?
Well, but it'd be the same wear and tear. Be the same wear and tear if you went to the museum as to school. It'd be the same.
Children in a car, same wear and tear as people without children in a
It
car?
depends on the age of the child. I've had my problems on that as well. And fair enough, you know. But that's minor, as I'm not disputing that, but costs. Your car costs are going to be the same whether or not you have children, for the most part. And it's not zero. It's $376 a year. It's not zero, but it's darn close to zero. And the idea that, what's the opportunity cost? It is that you don't take a trip that you might not want to take anyway. Once you have children, your life changes. Do anybody doubt that? No. Your life changes. And so you don't take the same trips that you would otherwise take. So your opportunity cost of your trip to the museum goes away. Yes.
I'm Julie Erickson, I'm with the department. My question is about, is the transportation cost based only on having a car?
No, it's whatever the Census Bureau tells us. It includes not just having a car, but public transportation as well.
Because
Sure.
those costs are a little bit more measurable to say that I have to buy another fare on the bus as opposed to.
That's why it's not zero. That's why it's not 3.7. It's not. If it was just car, my guess is it'd be zero. Of course you're right.
Just a couple of other questions from the audience. One deals with food, and the other one deals with
Sure.
housing. I don't want to necessarily step back too far, but on the housing aspect, would it not be reasonable to double your monetary cost per child for housing because of separated parents? If each having some parenting, they both need to provide similar housings for the child.
Look, I'm now just dealing with married households.
Okay.
We'll deal with single households later, but you can't get to beyond the principle unless we deal with just married households. I don't want to deal with that issue yet, although of course it's important.
And the food question is, it seems unjust to limit and accounting of food costs to the cheap and unhealthy options of a food desert neighborhood. More support paid can't be guaranteed to lead to a better diet, education, etc. But can we infer that increased support may lead to better opportunities? Excuse me.
The back
And he said, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked by the phone.
I don't know how to answer that question.
Jeff, do
I'm
you
not
have,
talking about the future, I'm talking about, in some sense, we're measuring past expenditures. You know, I don't know how to measure the things that you're dealing with. I'm only measuring the economic issue of what's the economic cost of a child, analogously, if I hate to say it, cost of an automobile. There's cost of an automobile. But true costs and opportunity costs, you know, there are. And so this is like that. This is using the same economic calculus. So I don't know how to answer the broader issues, which are more policy and less economics. Is that fair?
Jeff, did you have a question?
Bill, I just had,
Response.
again, I might be looking ahead, so I apologize. Your students probably do that too, right?
Yeah, I know. I don't give them my slides ahead of time. If I did,
They would never come to class.
exactly right. So, you know, they always ask, can I have the slides afterwards? I say, absolutely not. Then I know they won't come to class the next time. So, no, I've looked, in 50 years I've learned how to deal with students.
Okay, so my question then is on the example for that we're looking at, it's for low-income married households. We have an incremental cost.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the numbers for all in a moment.
That's exactly where I was going.
Well-
I would assume they would be different for medium and/or high
Well,
earning.
you know what? 3 slides later, you'll get them.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go into transit. Okay, let's go to child care and education. Now, what's interesting about that is the numbers aren't so different. Not so different. Why aren't they so different? Just a minute, why aren't they so different? Because this is not a collective good. Without children, you spend zero, essentially, on these issues. And I'm surprised they're as different as they are, maybe because of different years. But I would have expected we'd got almost the same numbers. And we got almost the same numbers. So, where the USDA gives you what I think are excessive numbers are where they deal with household collective goods, food, and housing and transportation. These are not so different. Anything else? Yeah, Jimmy.
For the incremental cost, are you referring to the actual cost difference between, let's just say, a 1-bedroom versus a 2-bedroom?
No, I'm dealing with the incremental cost of having a child and not having a child for the same income. And I'm not dealing with number of bedrooms. That's just my hypothetical.
One more question.
Sure.
But this is with regard to childcare, and so I'm confused because someone without children is not expending anything for childcare.
Correct.
If this is the incremental cost, and it's per year, I mean, we all know that childcare is phenomenally expensive.
Exactly right. So this is remember this is low-income people.
Even for low-income folks.
Let me turn to the next chart in a moment.
Okay.
But, and of course, it's incremental in that it's the amount spent minus zero.
Right.
So, but that can still use the same term.
But this is per year.
That's right.
and, I mean, I see every month
Well,
the number of 1,229
let's look-
for children.
we'll get to rich families in a minute.
No, I'm talking about.
I've got hands up, Lisa and Kathleen.
How he's
so.
defining healthcare, or I mean, childcare.
That's what I was
He doesn't mean necessarily daycare, right?
Here's what I mean. Again, I'm going to use the same top hat. I mean whatever the Census Bureau gives.
Well, what do they mean?
I really should have gotten their definitions better, and I don't have it here. Maybe we could get them. You know?
So, I think I can
Good.
this. So the families that are included in this are essentially childcare up to age 18. So families with a 17-year-old are in this number, and they're gonna be 0, and they're gonna be averaged into this, is that correct?
Yes, and 16 and 17, yes.
Yeah, so we're not just measuring families that have a daycare cost, but all families with
Yes.
the one child. So we'd be capturing older children in this number as well.
Yes, and then once you go to school, a lot of these costs go away.
And they may not also, if somebody's staying home and taking care of the child,
Sure.
then it's the opportunity cost,
That-
and not an actual cost.
That's right. That's right.
Lisa has her hand up, and then Kathleen. Lisa.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, based on statements you've made earlier, that the child care then is talking about, I think someone mentioned out in the audience, the crib and the bassinet and
Sure.
goods for the child
Good as
care.
well, right.
And then does the education expense capture
They-
the
They
daycare?
put it all together.
Okay,
They-
so it's one number?
It's one number.
Okay.
I mean, look, I and all the other models are captive to the Census Bureau. We don't have, and they made their decisions not based on child support issues, they made it on survey issues. So we're captive to what they've given us. My real defense is that everybody doesn't the same data, and there isn't any better data.
Kathleen, did you get your question?
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this. So when you're talking about the households, what I heard you say was that when there's no expenditures, that is also inclusive of those units of families who have decided to have one person come out of the workplace and take care of the child.
We do not have data. It's household expenditures, whether or not the one person is working. Whether or not both people are working. That's not, we don't divide it up that way.
Because that can, I mean, when you're talking about an opportunity cost, that can be a very
A
significant.
significant one, absolutely right. And maybe that should be an additional factor. It's not engaged here. Right? You're right, but you're absolutely right about that. Okay, let's look at the data. And, all right. This is low income. Let me make sure that you know what low income means here. Low income here is in all households with household income under $56,000. This is income, households with incomes under 56, and the average is 36,726. So this group has an average income of $36,000. And that's a third of my sample. I divided my sample in thirds. Right? So this is a third of my sample. And what's interesting is that the USDA divided their sample in the same way, so we try to be now comparable to them. And so what you want to see is compare our numbers, which are the incremental costs of having one child, or 2 children, or 3 children, with USDA costs, and then imputed costs is the difference. What I mean by imputed costs is how much should be allocated to child costs as the value of opportunity costs. So how do we get that? We take the USDA numbers and we minus the monetary numbers, that's what we found, and we got the imputed costs. So the third column is the second column minus the first column. And the numbers I think are striking. Because the imputed costs exceed the incremental costs. The largest share of the USDA values are their effort to estimate opportunity costs, or imputed costs, right? Right? Right. Not actual. Second, note the difference between housing and childcare. In every case, the USDA has housing costs as the biggest category. In every case, we don't. We have child care and education as the biggest category. Our numbers suggest that the largest category of child costs is child care and education. The USDA numbers say the largest category of child costs are housing costs. You guys have to make that decision between them. The number, it's not just the effort to estimate opportunity costs, it's what numbers you get from the decisions that they made. And the decisions that they made gave enormous amounts of opportunity costs. Enormous. I mean, the numbers are what the numbers are. 3 children for a household of average of $36,000, with 3 children, the total costs are $17,000. What's that, half? 17,000 divided by 36,000 is something like half? Do you think that's the way people in fact behave? And even the imputed costs are so enormous. When you make your decisions, Al, I would ask you to consider these numbers. And we'll go on with the other third types of households as well.
Hi, this is Jeff Jordan. So, question then, the housing and the food and the transportation using the USDA takes the census data, adds in opportunity costs, and has a formula to come up with the number.
Yes.
But when it comes to childcare and education, they simply take the data from the Census Bureau and just report it that way. So there's no opportunity cost there. Is that?
It's not mainly. For the most part, you're right. But as you can see, the differences between the incremental cost figures that I'm giving you and the USDA numbers aren't that great in that category. They're a little great, but they're not enormous. They're not. That's not where the action is.
Acknowledging with the child care and education that it's an average of all ages, meaning it could be actually higher if you just focused on the age group that needs child care.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Perfect.
But their numbers are not so different. Where they're really different is in the top 3 categories.
And that's where the methods obviously are all different. The numbers are the same for the basis, it's the method. Because it's all the Census Bureau data.
Yes, it's all the Census Bureau data. In housing, the issue is the extra bedroom for child. And in food, it's this nutritious diet. And in transportation, it's mainly a per capita expenditures. Remember when I said that my hypothetical was just hypothetical, not correct? Well, you can see incremental costs are significant, but they're not outrageous. Let me go through and we'll come back to these numbers, then we'll stop for lunch. How's that? All right, let's go to the next slide. Medium income. Medium income is income between $55,000 and $101,000. Right? And the average for household income is $76,000 in this sample. This is the middle third. And you can see what the numbers look like using exactly the same methodologies. Once again, housing costs are the highest for the USDA numbers, and once again, the child care and education is the highest category for our numbers. And the imputed cost, the